Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. It's more than 7:15 Ireland, almost 20 past, but we are here. Let's put a little bit more light here. Yeah, there we go. It works. So today we have our friend Andreia. She's our branch in Miami, as we have our branch in California with Dan. Now we have our branch in Miami with Andreia and Marcelo, our branch in Boston with Flavio. So a lot of branches around the world. So I would like to say thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you for being here with us. And today, let me see here. I have comments here. Yeah. So in order to start, I would like to do the initial prayer, because we do have a very interesting topic today. Andreia will talk about it, the impact of moral renewal in our lives. So it's a lot of questions and pieces inside of this puzzle. We need to move it very carefully in order to find ourselves, to get to know ourselves. Okay? So I would like to invite everyone to close your eyes if you can, if you want to. Open up your heart, your mind, and let's reach our mentors and ask them to be with us. Calm us down and make the connection with superior spirits. Especially today, we ask to give to our speaker, Andreia Marshall, good vibrations, good inspirations, in order to allow her talk, reach out, not just souls, but hearts, and make these hearts more softened, to get to know more ourselves. So be it. Amen. Andreia, my dear, thank you again. And hello from cold Ireland, and hello to sunshine Miami.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. So also, guys, if you have any question, please write your question on the comment box, and after the talk, the brief talk, Andreia, and we'll try to answer those questions. Okay. So, my dear, I will put your deck on the stream, and I'm the backstage. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen, and all of the friends that are connected right now. It is truly an honor to have been invited to be with you guys again. I love that he said that the branch in Miami. I love that. It's an extended fraternal branch, which really is what we should all be individually and collectively when we talk about being branches of fraternity throughout the world, as you are in Ireland, as we are here in Miami, Florida, different time zones, but it seems as if we are on the same time zone, spiritually speaking, as we keep seeking within this wonderful body of knowledge, the content found that can help us achieve that which we will be talking about today, which is the impact of this moral renewal in our lives. So I see already some people saying hello. It's really great to be with you guys. I wish it could be physically, but soon, maybe in the future, we can be physically connected with you guys as we continue sharing thoughts and ideas on Spiritism. I wanted to point out today the 3 books that we utilized for our study today and invite you to read for them because our time is very limited. And of course, this content, this information, this talk could really go different ways depending on how we think about it. And more questions are raised naturally, and it should, because we are talking about our spiritual sense. So today we wanted to suggest the book, The Conscious Being and Life Challenges and Solutions, both by the Spirit author, Joana de Angelis, psychographed by the beloved medium, Divaldo Pereira Franco, as well as The Gospel According to Spiritism. We wanted to also point out essays on moral development that we utilized, a little bit of a non-spiritist material, but that has a profound psychological aspect for our analysis. In combining both, perhaps we can reach some sort of understanding by the end of our topic today. When we were looking for the material to be shared with you guys today, we remembered one very beautiful book that soon, hopefully, will be translated, that was written and left by Allan Kardec, that specifically talked about his trip of 1862, when Allan Kardec set out to visit some starting and already existing Spiritist nucleuses of study to see how the groups were doing, to see what was happening at that time. And just so that you know, fun fact, Allan Kardec always utilized his own financial means to be able to travel to and from places as to not burden the starting groups at that time near Lyon. And specifically, he wrote in this Spiritist voyage or trip of 1862, part of a communication that came from someone who wrote in the Gazette the following statement regarding Spiritists and Spiritism. And here is what they had to say. Spiritists are fanatical beings who destroyed all the religious beliefs of their time and that of their country. You know, if when I read that comment by this Mr. CM that we see here on your screen, I was wondering how I would have responded today had I seen such a comment. But Allan Kardec, part of his quality as a humble worker of Christ himself, didn't waste any time in feeling offended or attacked. In reality, he decided to offer an explanation to that comment that was written in the Gazette. Spiritism, he says, is not a political nor a religious sect. It is a confirmation of facts. It is a moral body of knowledge, and morality can be found in all religions, in every country, in all times. Is the moral aspect taught good or bad, is the question he asks. Is it subversive? Study it and you will know what it's about. However, since its moral character is contained in the gospel, to condemn Spiritism is to condemn the gospel in itself. It's a very beautiful answer, and it is aligned with a comment by the Spirit Aurelius in the realms of mediumship, where he states that symbolically speaking, Spiritism is Jesus returning to the modern world to assist us in the non-stop work of spiritual progress. And this is what we have in Spiritism today. We kind of skipped a slide in the presentation before us. We wanted to point out that there was a challenge that happened in 2019, just last year, in which people were asked to show their before and after photo 10 years prior. And we saw some celebrities posting pictures of their before and after, 2009, 2010. Some people resorted to humor, as with a little stick drawing of someone who was skinny in 2009 and then gained a bit of weight in 2019. And then we saw the reality of our world, the current state of the world, 2009 and 2019. If we were to do a spiritual before and after shot of ourselves, here is where our topic sort of does come handy today. As far as moral renewal and changes, where were we in 2010 and where are we today in 2020? Has there been any significant change that we can actually say, wow, I used to be this way and today I have a new way of thinking, or I used to feel a certain way, but today I realize that that no longer bothers me. And we sense a sense of maturity as far as morality is concerned. This is just a question, no food for thought here, that perhaps we should start a challenge of the before and after, spiritually speaking, of ourselves. And because we're talking about spiritism, perhaps it's a good idea to start evaluating the changes, or better yet, the opportunity for changes that spiritism has provided us with, to consider and reflect about how far we have come already. And this is important for us to keep in mind as we continue our study, because often it seems as if we try to analyze or focus on the negative, that which we still haven't changed, that which we still lack in. And although it's very wholesome and noble to do that and realize what needs to be changed, it's also important that we focus on the positive feedback, the positive outcome, the positive advancements that we have made, that we have received along the years. And this is what we hope to keep in mind as we keep going today with our topic. Since Allan Kardec answered this writer of the Gazette in stating that to attack Spiritism is the same as attacking the gospel because one is the same as the other, we find here that perhaps the reason for this comment from Allan Kardec is because he did bring us in 1857 in the Spirit's book our role model and guide for humanity that is found in the examples and the teachings of Christ. In Spiritism, the teachings that is offered within Spiritism is completely aligned with those principles that were brought over 2,000 years ago. Obviously, we see a lot of examples contained in the gospel where Christ was calling men and women for this type of moral renewal. And one of the aspects that he did that was in stating, whenever somebody saw him, let's use, for example, the information that we have, or the example of the paralyzed man who regained his health. And Jesus looked at him and said, go and don't sin anymore. I know a lot of examples in the Gospels where we see Christ saying that. This is really important that we make sure that we understand what the word sin meant back then as it does mean today, which is to miss the mark. So whenever he proposed the idea to continue on, but try to remain from missing the mark yet again, Christ was talking about moral renewal, about this change that was actually quite important for us to embrace, the idea for us to embrace, which reminded us of this beautiful story that is contained in the Gospel of Luke. I know that some of you guys have heard about the miraculous catch of fish and the calling of Peter, in which it stated that one morning Peter had arrived with the other disciples and he had not caught anything. And Christ then gets into the boat and he asks Peter to go to a certain direction, obviously with a lesson, an intent of a lesson behind that request. And Peter, because he was Peter, he felt a little bit annoyed with that because he had spent the entire evening seeking to catch something and it wasn't possible to do that. So Christ then, after Peter, because he loved obeyed him and told Peter to go ahead and cast his nest for the catch at a certain spot, Peter answered him, Master, I have toiled all night and I took nothing, yet I will do as you tell me to do. I will go ahead and let down the nets. And then the outcome of this is contained in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5, verse 6, in which it showed that when he did cast out the nest, you guys remember the outcome of the miraculous abundance of fish in that nest, so much so that Peter had to call other fishermen that was around the area to help them get the fish into their own boats. So when this happened, Amelia Rodriguez, in a beautiful book called The Message of the Immortal Love, she states that at that moment, Peter threw himself, and also this is contained in the Gospel of Luke, that Peter threw himself in the Master's feet and stated, Lord, depart from me, for I am a sinful man. If I was to narrate the story seriously, without a bit richness in details, I bet that you would be consumed with emotional feelings, just kind of looking at what was happening at that time and Peter's own humility to see before him such a beautiful, great spirit, the purest that we have known of, that has been here on earth calling us towards this moral renewal. And when he throws himself and says that, Jesus looks at him with the profound love that was characteristics of whom he was, whom he is, and stated, do not be afraid. Henceforth, you will be catching men. Very profound, very beautiful, because symbolically speaking, we are all on the same boat. And here we see that basically Jesus was stating that Peter would be the one helping him to catch, symbolically speaking, men and women who were ready to assimilate the message of the good news, to assimilate the message of the Gospels, to assimilate the message of a body of knowledge, why not say, contained in Spiritism, that will offer exactly that moment. Here we are, reincarnated. We are reincarnated. We are in the flesh. There is a meaning, a reason behind a planning about the aspects of our lives. We weren't put here simply to work, to suffer, to procreate, to have fun. We were put on earth to honor all the laws, the divine laws, the law of progress, the law of labor, the law of reproduction, the law of cause and effect, the law of reincarnation, the law of love, justice, and charity, and so on, to seek spiritual ascension and purification. And of course, we know that this is not something that would be done automatically. It is something that would take time. And of course, we are aware of that. We know that anybody who would have this idea that upon being in contact with a body of knowledge such as this one, that we would be liberated from all of our, let's use the word sins, or better yet, mistakes, experiences from the past that were negative, and automatically become pure beings. We already know that it does not work that way. This is where we see Christ speaking to James in another instance when he tells James, the worst crisis is of a moral character. Human beings are destined to inestimable light, yet they still enjoy wandering in the shadow of ignorance, bound to the passions that dominate them and cause much unhappiness. My Father does not want the sinner to disappear, but the sin that lives within to dissipate. For this, however, moral transformation is imperative, and continuous effort to arrive at this result is necessary. It's interesting to see that a lot of people still seek for the phenomena that Spiritism actually can bring, which we can see. In 1848, we saw the turning tables, the Fox sisters contributing for this phenomena. And as they traveled to Europe, hitting France, we saw there the advancement in the growing aspect of spiritualism. Yet with Spiritism, we see Allan Kardec proposing something in 1862 when he states, we are very far from the times of the turning table. Not very far, right? Because 1848 to 1862, yet what he was trying to say is that Spiritism came, and it came to show us that the great phenomena we can ever envision back in 160 plus years ago when Spiritism came about, and today in 2020, is the moral type of renewal, the moral character being modified. And it's interesting to see that although we are aware that we are destined to this inestimable light, something that we can put a price on, something that is priceless, there is, for some reason, something that still holds us back, that allows us to continue wandering in the shadow of ignorance, as Jesus stated to James at that time. Why is it that that happened? And here is where in the book Candles in the Dark and Light, we see, it's not yet translated, so pardon me if I'm mistranslating this. The author Hermínio de Miranda, states that often what actually holds people back in their moral renewal is courage, devotion, and renunciation. Courage to be able to look at oneself and realize what needs to be changed. Devotion or commitment to make an effort to modify that which we are not happy with, and also renunciation, renouncing the things of the world so that we can ascend. It's as if we have tiny little, really heavy sandbags on our body in the presence of maybe hatred, intolerance, pride, ambition. These are all tiny little heavy sandbags that keeps us down, heavy, on the ground, whereas if we were able to just get rid of them, we would become lighter, and ascending to higher spheres would actually become quite easier. And not only that, he also states that a lot of people, when they are face to face with Spiritism, with this reality that is proposed by the benevolent spirits, it's as if realizing what needs to be done, because it's so much work, they take a step back. It's as if, symbolically speaking, it's a moment where we are being called to wake up. Joana de Angeli talks about this a lot, waking up to the realities of the soul. Yet we keep insisting on hitting that snooze button that says 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes symbolizing maybe in the next existence, I'll be this way or that way. And we can no longer hit that snooze button. It is time to wake up. As we continue here, we are going to see that there is a very important aspect to understand about Spiritists and Spiritism. Spiritism does not create any morality. It only makes it easier for people to understand the practice and the morality of Christ. So that which we could not understand over 2,000 years ago, often filled with allegories or symbolism, Spiritism allows us to understand, so that with rationality, reason, we are able to focus on what needs to be modified. It is no longer something about imposition of ideas, but rather the compass, a moral compass that tells us which way we can and cannot go. We see here that Allan Kardec will bring us in the Gospel according to Spiritism this very impactful phrase right here. Truly moral persons are those who practice the law of justice, love, and charity in its greatest purity. And of course, we are yet to reach there, but in this item right here of the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is item 3 of the chapter Be Perfect, and then item 4, we are basically given the recipe on how to arrive at the state of a moral person, filled with ethics, filled with moral conduct. And then Allan Kardec talks about the type of suffering that we can actually feel at the moment we get to the other side of life, the spiritual realm, where we discarnate. Because as we see in the book, Heaven and Hell, and most recently released the book Afterlife, we are going to find that the suffering is actually a consequence of how one led one's life. There is no judge pointing a finger at someone telling them, look at what you did or did not do. There is, in reality, this moment where we are put face to face with ourselves. And that's something that you can't hide or run from. Yet, they tell us about the possible efforts that we can make in becoming better beings, the effort we make to actually resist our negative inclinations. And this is why we brought today this sense of moral development and maturation that is found in the Essence of Morality here, where we are offered the 4 components of moral development. This study right here was conducted by James Rest, an American psychologist that is specializes in moral psychology and development. And together with a Minnesota group of colleagues, he actually came up with the 4 components of moral development. The first one, sensitivity, where we actually have empathy. We identify with someone else's experience and the cognition of the effect of various possible actions on others. We find the development of moral judgment in the sense of maturation, where we choose an action that is most moral. Moral motivation, where we decide to behave in a moral way as opposed to other options. And then finally, implementation, where we carry out the chosen moral action. And someone may say, Andreia, how then do I know about all of this? Well, moral maturation, the sense of maturing our moral side, is actually part of our spiritual progress. And then we talk about the fact that the laws, the divine laws that actually points out the way to become sensitive, to have judgment, to seek this moral motivation, and finally implement a proper conduct or a proper chosen moral action, has to do with listening to the divine laws that can be found in our conscious, as the benevolent spirits told Allan Kardec. It's in here, it's in here. Allan Kardec also talks about the need to not only comprehend Spiritism to arrive at being the moral person, but also that Spiritism must be well felt. We need to feel it within. It's as if we are listening to a beautiful music. Some people may hear sound, whereas others feel impacted by the beautiful content of each chord of music, of each instrument. It raises them up to a higher sphere of being, mentally, spiritually, and why not emotionally. So this is the aspect of moral development that we should be seeking. And then he talks about the 2 moral senses that appear in the context of maturation. One of them is the conventional, which is the accepted, opportunistic, sometimes amoral or immoral, because it's imposed by the decorum of each era, civilization, and culture, or the legitimate one, which overcomes occasional limitations and holds genuine sways in our eras, such as that set forth in the Sermon of the Mount. Here we see that the Sermon of the Mount is that one body of information that is timeless, Perhaps this is what led Gandhi to state that if all the books in humanity were lost, if we had the Sermon of the Mount as the last literary piece, nothing would be lost. Joanna de Angelis then comes in the book Conscious Being in an item called Victory Over Oneself, in which she states that ethical moral acquisitions, in addition to the discernment between good and evil, between right and wrong, appear as if they were spontaneous developments of the divine essence comprising the spirit. However, the depth and perfecting of such values depend on each individual's efforts, interests, and achievements. This is the sort of map that she gives out to us. And she continues in the book Life, Challenges, and Solutions in stating that the grand psychological endeavor of individuals' growth resides in their search for themselves. Although similar to other people, each person is different. Psychologically, everyone's unconscious contains all of the symbols of all the different cultures mixed together to form the individual reality. However, it is indispensable for them to seek individualization, that is, authenticity, ideally constructing and accepting themselves with qualities that are non-transferable and peculiar to them alone. So while I may admire someone and actually aim or wish to be like they are, we have to realize that we are a reality, a universe in itself. We are able to attain and reach those goals that we admire in other people. Yes, we do. But here she's talking about the fact that everyone's individual growth is actually something that resides in the search for themselves. So there is no reason for me to wish to be like, sorry, Stephen, but like Stephen Bertozzo. I am aware of who I am in the search for myself. I seek and I reach in and I find the qualities that are all mine due to the merits that I actually have from previous existences, all that I have acquired so far, and also that which still needs work, which is non-transferable. It's something that only I can do. Of course, I can count on the assistance of friends, but it's something that is not transferable. Only I can answer for them. That's why she reminds us that to live means to construct oneself inwardly, overcoming each level of evolution by the means of self-refinement. It's not an easy task since it's related to our moral and spiritual reality. We are incessantly called to work on our self-worth, our inner growth, and to overcome belittling dependency. So when people say, why am I alive? Why am I here? It's to construct oneself inwardly. Somebody asked the question this week if when God or when Jesus talked about the kingdom of God, if it's something that can be constructed or built within our hearts. Yes, it is. That's what it means to construct oneself inwardly, overcoming each level of evolution, meaning overcome all of that which still holds us back. We have reincarnated many times and we will reincarnate many times. Thank goodness for that realization, because it is through the successive reincarnations that we will be able to overcome these obstacles. Yet, and finally, one of the things that we cannot forget as far as the moral impact of renewal in our lives is this phrase right here that is brought on, that we are actually the ones that are going to be studying our imperfection and striving instantly to combat them. All the efforts are focused on being able to say to ourselves tomorrow that we are better than we were yesterday. So spiritists, true spiritists, are recognized by the efforts that they make to resist the negative inclinations and to better themselves day by day. Does not mean overnight purity. It's the effort that we make to be able to reach and get there. And of course, thankfully, we have Spiritism for that, messengers that are here to assist us to be able to overcome all of these tendencies. And of course, the presence of our dear friends like we have. Stephen, I'm going to call you back now for our discussion to be able to help us to get there. Thank you guys for your assistance and attention. And I'll throw it back to our friend, Stephen.
Wow. See, as expected, a wonderful and inspiring talk.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much, my friend. And why people write their question, I have a question. Start from where? How I should start this moral renewal?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's pretend that we just came in contact with this and we really don't know what to do. We can start by meditating and praying about and realizing and making an analysis of whom we are. Because in essence, we all know what we don't like about ourselves, right? We may pretend to ignore it, we may pretend to not know it, but we all know deep down inside the things that we don't appreciate about ourselves. The first step is to not fall into a guilt type of position where we are putting ourselves down, where we become overcome with guilt about the way we've been acting with people. Let's say I'm a very intolerant person and I'm very aggressive with people all the time and I'm very rude with them. This is something that often will make people feel bad about themselves at the end of the day. So the first step is to not become overcome with this type of guilt, but rather realizing that it's still something that can be polished, that can be studied, analyzing where that is coming from. If we are unable to realize that ourselves, we can seek professionals in the field to see perhaps it's something that we are clinging to that is from a very painful past, whether it's in this existence or a previous one, with the assistance of a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Sometimes we do need assistance on that. We are going to find why we feel or act a certain way and aim for how we wish to be. So if today I was intolerant and aggressive and rude to Esteban because maybe he didn't like the way I wore my hair and I barked back at him and I bit a piece of his feet off, tomorrow I'm going to do what we are told by St. Augustine. At the end of the day, he would stop and reflect about his day. He would realize where he was a certain way that was not accordance to what he wished to be. In the next day, he would seek to ask for forgiveness. He would seek to try to not act that very same way. This is why there is a phrase that says it's one day at a time. We don't, or better yet, we shouldn't wish to accomplish everything in one day. It's a work in progress. We are a work in progress. You know, the beautiful statues that come to be, they don't get done like that. There is an artist who with chisels and other type of tools starts trimming there and polishing here until it becomes a beautiful form. And this is who we are. So every day is an opportunity for self-analysis, and that's where we can start.
Yeah, starting
Maybe.
from that, it's a great point, but let's say, especially here in Europe, people are more conservative. You know, they are more involved with themselves, you know, and like someone today, they're doing nothing. They saw you, they like a presentation. There is any book you recommend them to read to get to know the beginning of these terminologies and get to know more about the principles you just gave to us?
Yeah, so here's, it doesn't matter, in my opinion, where we are in our existence. Whenever we are deviating, when we're stepping back, when we are distancing ourselves from the divine laws, right? Let's use a term that is easily accessible to everyone, the golden rule, doing unto others as we'd wish them to do unto us. Inevitably suffering comes to be. We can decide for a long time to be set in our ways, saying I was born this way and this is how I'll die. But this position alone causes a lot of suffering. And unfortunately, a lot of times that one push that gets people going to modify that which they do not like is the aspect of suffering. Tired of suffering, they search for alternative ways to seek changes in their lives. This is one way. So I could be someone who's very into myself, and although I might like a presentation or I may like a TED talk that was very profound, as a public talk like this one gets forgotten. I mean, I could say something that was like, wow, that was really cool at that moment, and tomorrow the person may not even realize it. But there is a feeling that stays within them. That's the most meaningful part of it. The Spiritist books that I can suggest is The Conscious Being and Life Challenges and Solutions by Joana de Angelis, who's the spirit author. Times of Health and Conscientiousness is also another one that is very good. But for the starting spiritists, I really do suggest the reading and study of the book, the Spirits book. There is a reason why this body of knowledge came to be with a book based on questions and answers. It is because we are the ones responsible for getting there. We were given some of the questions that were asked by Allan Kardec is very up to date. I mean, it's as if it wasn't even from 160 plus years ago. They're very accurate. They're very for today. And the answers provided by the benevolent spirits are timeless as well for us to seek. Another book, non-spiritist, that actually can help someone is, in my mind, one of the most profound books, which is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. His example and his ideas of what life's meaning is, I'm certain is going to touch the very core anybody who even hasn't embraced any type of religious or philosophical ideas. Hello, little one. I see your baby there.
My secretary came here.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's another book that could actually help someone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a comment here and say, another great explanation, but what if we know where to start? How to start, but over and over, and we keep failing at the same point of the journey. Sometimes it seems we will never get through this certain vice or bad habits. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure who asked that question on behalf of the
Me
Spirit
too.
Society of Ireland, but I applaud the question, because it's something that I can answer this, because for many times I would fall into a lot of discouragement within myself, right? We start something, all of a sudden, before we know it, we've already tripped and fell, right? So here's something that we usually tell people. We become so enthusiastic about an idea that we want to do everything at once. And we create a trap for ourselves when that happens, because we aren't able to do everything that quickly, right? So my key to you, perhaps it's what's worked for me, is self-compassion and self-love also as we continued. The positive thing is that whenever we trip and fall, it's usually forward. So unbeknownst to us, we've already made a step forward to realizing the key is to pick oneself up again, shaking the dust off and continuing the walk, even when it hurts. Self-forgiveness is another one, because sometimes we keep falling into old habits, because these old habits have made part of who we are for many centuries. And it's going to be hard to become detangled from all the knots from a previous existence. I don't know if the man is the person who wrote is a man and a woman, but I'm going to give an example. So there's a little necklace right here. It's very thin and it's filled with little beads. And when this thing gets knotted, I may sit for an hour trying to unknot everything without breaking it loose. And I love this necklace. So to me, our previous existences are made up of tiny knots that needs to be unknotted, that needs to be undone. And the way to do that is through the aspect of, yes, forgiveness, understanding, tolerance as we continue, but not forgetting all of that towards ourselves as well. Because at this moment, regardless of whom we have around us, we can be our best friend or we can be our best enemy too. So developing this sense of self-worth and love is going to help us, facilitate us whenever we trip and fall, so that we can continue on our journey, walking with firm steps. Let us remember also that as a child, as a baby, one started to learn how to walk by falling, getting up kind of wobbly, falling back down, crying a lot because it hurts, and being able to, well, this didn't work, maybe this will work. And it's a work in progress. Perhaps we can say that we are our greatest art piece, that we are the artist, and our life, what we are building, is going to be our greatest masterpiece.
Yeah, take this point. Why do you think people go to a spirit center when they have when they are suffering. Because when you read the Spirit's book, when you read any book from Kardec or even Chico Xavier or Divaldo, it's a kind of logical thing. It's, this is it. I will follow these principles. Not follow these principles because Spiritism is, for me, it's a way to live. It's not even a religion or philosophy. It's a way to live. Mm-hmm. But if you were gonna do a survey in spirit centers, I can say more than 50% of the people there came when they were in a struggling time, when they are passing through problems, and they found a kind of consolation. Not because they read a book and say, "Oh, I like this. This makes sense. Let me go there." Why do you think it's people go by?
There are a lot of reasons. I can't say in Ireland, but I'll use an example here in our Spiritist centers in Miami, Florida, where you have some people that came because a friend told them about this aspect of immortality, mediumship, reincarnation, which is very attractive for spiritualists who are seeking information about it. A lot of people, it was because they're suffering. So all of a sudden, I am somebody who is at the Spiritist Center. I have a friend who maybe just lost a loved one, and I tell them about how life goes on and about all of the beautiful aspect of consoling Spiritism. Spiritism is known as the promised consoler. It is here in this idea of a body of knowledge that will embrace someone and help them deal with the turmoils and the tribulations of life. And so a lot of people came because of that. They go through the fraternal assistance at the center, and they find that indeed it is a very welcoming place that is offering them solace for their illnesses, for their suffering, for this or that. It happens a lot of time that after the person feels strengthened, after participating 6 to 8 months, they disappear. And they only return when they're suffering again, because they know that that's a safe place to go to when they're suffering. And that's okay too. We've never pointed a finger. Well, to the contrary, we've always welcomed them back with a huge smile on our face, because we know, like Joanna Giangeli stated, everyone's psychological maturity is different from each other, from where they are. So people seek sometimes only when they need something, whereas for others, like you, Stephen, it's a way of living. But then again, here's something very beautiful. Some people end up at the Spiritist Center guided by benevolent spirits.
Oh, yeah.
Do spirits influence or exert any influence in our lives? I think it's question 459. If I'm not mistaken, if I am, please pardon me, but it's in the Spirit's book. And they say, yes, so much so that at times it's as if they are the ones controlling you. This can be a positive or a negative type of influence. We had somebody who would drive by in our street many times from work, and she would always stop at the same red light. And not only at the same red light, always in front of our Spiritist door, which was in the middle of the street. She never stopped here or here. She stopped always here, until eventually interest got the best of her and she decided to walk in. In the mediumistic meeting, I don't know if some of you are familiar with this, at the Spiritist Center, the mediumistic meetings are called spiritual rescue meeting. It is not phenomena just to hear spirits. It is truly, in my opinion, an ER. It's an emergency room for suffering spirits. We see a lot of spirits saying, I was walking on by and I saw this light and I decided to walk in. So this is beautiful to see how the benevolent spirits guide the way for us to get where we need to be. How many people entered the Spiritist Center while they were contemplating suicide? No information about it, no idea why. Why did that happen? Which goes to show that spiritual assistance is available at all times. It is here to protect us at all times. Of course, the benevolent spirits respect our time. If I don't want to go to the Spiritist Center or to the psychologist, or if I want to stop taking my medicine, if I'm going through some type of psychiatric treatment, of course, the benevolent spirits will step back and respect our free will. But at the moment that we call, that we pray, that we cry, they come running to our rescue. What we need to do is maintain our spiritual antenna lit up so that we never miss a teaching, a lesson, a warning, a loving type of consolation from them.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you very much. So the author of that question, it was our dear friend Vanderlei.
Oh, hello, Vanderlei. I miss you.
And also our friend from Chicago, Don Sambal. I think this is a statement, but he said here, I've worked on some issues for 20, 30 years, and they still come up at times, but never as strong as in the past.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
We
We see, I mean, repeated habits, repeated patterns, but as they're becoming less and less frequent or less and less strong, that's a huge sign of evolution. It should be your before and after photo, Dawn, you know, the one that we showed before, the challenge. So if there was a spiritual challenge where we could place our spiritual photo 10 years back, I'd say you'd have a beautiful after photo in 2020. So
Yeah.
good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, and then let's remind that forgiveness, when you forgive something, is not like, oh, we're gonna delete that episode you don't remember. Of course, forgiving means when you remember that bad situation or that episode, you don't have your feelings attached to that event as it was in the past.
And not just that.
It's a gradual progress.
And we didn't have the moral maturity back then that we have today. So let's talk about this. You know, I have a child who's 2 years old versus an adolescent who's 15 years old. When a child makes a mistake, they don't know any better. Where you're an age where you know better, of course, now you've gained a sense of maturity. You're able to look back and say, wow, I was in my spiritual infancy at that moment. It's why Joana de Angeli keeps repeating that we shouldn't use the term mistakes. We should use the term experiences. It was a negative experience that led to whom we are today. So the things that we don't appreciate today is something that shows us about our progress. And something else, when we look at the examples, let's think about Paul of Tarsus. If Paul was to consider all his wrongdoings prior to the conversion on the road of Damascus, he would become stagnant and frozen in place. To the contrary, he became the greatest disseminator that we see here. His example, I mean, just read the book, Paul and Stephen, and we can see how much he accomplished. Imagine if he didn't do that, if he froze with guilt, with a lacking of forgiveness for his own self and his past. This is why we have the teachings that a love covers a multitude of wrongdoings. In the gospel, the word sin is used, but let's use wrongdoings. It's because when we start working, it's as if we put in action, fluidically speaking, if you will, if you want to say this way, a movement that somehow sort of distances ourselves from that. It's not to say that we are not going to be facing consequences, or of course we will, but it diminishes that. And we see several accounts where somebody reincarnated. They were supposed to undergo a trial and expiation that was very severe, based on the law of cause and effect from something that happened before. And because of their moral conduct, the efforts they make to modify, and good conduct, charitable ones, they were able to lessen the trial. This is what Christ means by a love covers a multitude of sins. And this is something that we should become aware of. Let's look at Don. I don't know what some of his issues were, but can you imagine if he engulfed himself in the feeling of guilt instead of simply embracing that's just who he was 20, 30 years ago. But today he's a different man. He's the new man, right? And he is someone that obviously is not stagnating his steps because of being lost in the sense of guilt for what he's done. He's actually working on the betterment of himself, consequently, for this existence. And something else, 20, 30 years is a long time in this life. But let's just remember that even if he reached the end of his existence and he wasn't able to overcome that, eternity is before him. He's an immortal soul. Of course, we're not going to hit the snooze button and leave it for the next existence, but be kind, right? Anybody who says that you're able to acquire a degree of purity in this life where you're going to overcome something that has been part of who you are for many existences really is not in contact with the law of nature. A rosebud only blossoms at the right time. It doesn't go from one nice tiny button to beautiful, full of perfume petals. It takes time.
We need to wait for the spring.
Yes, which we are not in right now. Just summer.
Yeah. Wow, it's amazing. But this is a topic we can talk for hours. And what do you have to say for those who are seeing this video? Because one of the great successes we are having here is every day we do have new people here from Ireland, from the United States, from Japan, from New Zealand the other day, from Brazil, of course. And what do you have to say for those who will see or are seeing our video and they want to make a life change? Do you have any inspiration? Oh, like Mark Carlos he's seeing us from California, sunny California.
Mark Carlos from California, very good.
Yeah,
I do have something to say, but I need to find the quote properly here.
Okay.
Here we go. I think I found it. First and foremost, we may not always agree with everything that we see. Somebody like maybe me exposing here or bringing my own reflection based on the study that we extracted from the Spiritist books. So be patient if you encounter someone like that. And not always do we have to agree with what the person is saying. Another thing to consider is that Steven and myself, we are not perfect. We are just like all our brothers and sisters who are connected, trying to overcome our difficulties, our challenges, our tribulations. The other thing that we need to consider is that we can help each other out. So I'm certain that during the lives, if you have something to contribute, don't feel shy. You know, sometimes your own experience helps someone else who's connected and reading your comments. But I do want to end with this one. It's found in John chapter 16, verse 33. And this is a phrase from Jesus. He said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. This here in Jesus in Christ is something that I've been repeating a lot, and it's a statement from Joanna de Angelis in the book Jesus in Our Days. She says that the world desperately is in need of bringing Christ back out of the crucifix, meaning the one who is a companion, a psychotherapist, someone who's there to assist us so that we don't overcome ourselves by going over the abyss of despair, of desperation, of discouragement. When we don't know where to seek, it is in Jesus that we do. How do we do that? Well, my tip to you, I envision him sitting beside me, his arms around me as a paternal big brother figure, someone that I can open my heart and soul and know that I'm not going to be judged because he knows who I am. He knew me before I was. We were invited to be in this huge terrestrial boat. That's why we say we are all on the same boat. Like the simple fisherman over 2,000 years ago, troubled waters all around. And when Peter felt that he was going to actually become engulfed by the waves, Christ told them to be the ones with faith. Faith is something that comes not just from a feeling, but also reason. It's uniting the mind and the heart. So that's what I usually do. And I do cry. And I do open up when I can find someone that sometimes I just don't have the courage to let them in the deepest part of my soul, of my sorrow that is in need of assistance. Have faith that the benevolent spirits will be with you at that moment, embracing you and guiding you, perhaps even talking very, very slowly in your ear so you can assimilate the encouragement. Remember that Spiritism is the good news, and good news is about bringing happiness and joy, even during tribulation, because the true and sincere Spiritist will realize that this is all temporary. The storm will pass, and with every passing storm, the sunshine comes again. So let's remember that and be encouraged. Always be encouraged.
Yeah. Let's use the quote from Mary, Mother of Jesus, like said, it will pass.
This too shall pass. Yes.
Yeah. So, a request here. We love it. Please come again with more information about the works of Joanna. See, people are saying.
Thank you, Vanderlei. We'll do.
So, I have to comply with them. So,
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for the invitation, and for you guys that are watching. Thank you very much. It's good to see some names that are familiar, and I know Don Semble to be an avid reader of Spiritist books. I know that for a fact. I hope he continues that, and he continues sharing the gems that are found in the literature.
Yeah, Don is with us every Tuesday and Thursday. Don with us here. So he's a brave one. He's a brave one. Listen us broadcasting here. And my dear friends, our time is up. But I would like to say thank you very much for your time. Don't say thank you for both of us. We have our friend here, Mohammed. Hey, Mohammed. And so, Roberta, see?
Thank you, guys.
Hope to see you next time. So,
thank you. Much appreciated.
No, yeah. And don't say I'm retired. Okay, you may be retired from work, but not from the Spiritism.
Is he fluent in Portuguese and English? We can give him work, right? We have work for him.
Exactly.
We can give him work.
For a job, you do have a job. Yeah. So, my dear friend, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your efforts in order to bring this viewpoint from Joanna de Angelis, which is a very important spirit who gave her books through our dear friend Divaldo. It's a lot to study. I know reading Joanna, it's kind of, it's not hard, but it requires a lot of attention and a lot of study. And having you helping us, it's a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you guys for bearing with me and for the presentation, for the invitation. Thank you.
And would you like to do our final prayer?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, great.
We can do that. We can invite our friends, brothers and sisters connected right now. Either keep your eyes open or closed, however you feel more comfortable, but definitely elevate our thoughts and open our hearts to our Master Jesus and the benevolent spirits who are with us at this time. It is truly beautiful to know that we are able to be connected with loving ties through the blessed technology that allows us to not only utilize the tools of the internet to talk about and propagate Spiritism, but also to know that we are not alone in this world as we continue on our own journey towards spiritual ascension. We are very grateful for this body of knowledge that enlightens and liberates us, that empowers and allows us to have a moment of reflection about our essence, which is divine. And because of this, we can only give thanks to our Master Jesus, who over 2,000 years ago showed us that we could have a direct connection with our Father who are in heaven, that we could speak to him directly as daughters and sons usually do with their fathers. We are grateful for the missionaries that come in the name of our Master Jesus, containing the presence of benevolent spirits like Joana de Angelis, Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, Andre Lewis, Emmanuel and others, who come to our aid, guiding us, for they know how painful, how dolorous, yet how much it actually means to be able to walk on the face of the earth, evolving, progressing, and acquiring new knowledge, new characteristics that are filled with virtue and positive ideas. We ask that you keep blessing this beautiful group that is working, that is committed towards disseminating of Spiritism, and also the hearts connected in Texas and California, in other parts of the world that are with us at this time, for we know that at this moment our homes have become focus of light and love, a much needed quality and virtue in the turmoil place of the earth that we find ourselves in right now. Yet we know that this too, dear Master, shall pass. Thank you for being with us always until the end of time, as your promise long, long ago. Thank you, and so be it.
Thank you, my dear friend.
Thank you.
And I wish you a very good end of the day for the
Thank you.
inspirations,
You too.
for the talk. Enjoy your sunny.
Have a good night.
Send some sunshine to us, please.
I will.
Okay,
If
yeah.
if not physical, by the emissions of my heart, I'll send some sunshine.
Please, yeah. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you very much, my dear friend. Thank you all. Thank you very much. I will not close the bridge with United States because this bridge should remain open with or without us here. This is a bridge open 24 hours a day. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you Thursday.